Lisa, one of the first cases involving a police officer in the Freddie Gray case.
CBS News special report. A judge hands down a not guilty verdict in the case of a Baltimore police officer charged in the death of Freddie Gray. CBS's Steve Dorsey joins us live at the courthouse with details.
Heather, the judge ruled not guilty on Officer Edward Nero's charges of reckless endangerment, assault, and 2 counts of misconduct in office. As that verdict was being read, he burst into tears, hugging his defense team and a line of supporters waiting to cheer him and his victory in court. Actually, just seconds ago, apparently, Mr. Nero and his defense left the court and were followed by a throng of reporters and court police officers.
Attorney for the family of Freddie Gray, Bill Murphy here.
I think Judge Williams articulated all of the relevant circumstances that caused him to find that Nero was not involved. And
CBS News special report, I'm Heather Bosch. Well, joining us live now to talk more about the verdict is Robert Coolish. He's the director of M-Law, University of Maryland undergraduate law programs, and a lecturer of law at Carey Law School. Thank you so much for joining us here on WTOP. We appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about this verdict and why you think the judge ruled the way he did.
Well, it just came down kind of difficult to say without much reflection. I think a lot of people in Baltimore, which is where I live, so I take special interest in the case and in the aftermath. I live on the west side of Baltimore. I think that the people in Baltimore, very, very few people thought that the case would end up differently than it did. So I don't think it comes down as much of a surprise. I think the case, the judge covered the issues in his reading of the verdict. I think that the case, perhaps, history will look at this in a lot of ways, but if it was a jury trial and the decision was made by a jury, I think that might have had a stronger stamp of legitimacy. But that said, even so the case came out the way that it did, I think that the community in Baltimore can take a lot of pride that there was a trial in the first place, which is a rarity. And I think that there are a lot of the purposes of public education that was served in here. I think there's been a public dialogue about probable cause and reasonable suspicion and about false arrests in neighborhoods like Sandtown, Winchester. Mm-hmm. And I think these are issues that hadn't been talked about at such a high level before. And I don't think it's going to stop after this decision. And, of course, we have 5 more trials to go.
Right. When you say that people kind of expected this decision, did you say that for any reason other than it was probably a weak case against the officer?
Well, I think it was a novel theory of the case that was brought. So I don't know that it was a weak case. I thought it was an interesting case that was kind of pushing the judge to look at it a little bit differently, and perhaps the judge wasn't ready to. I think we'll hear more about that in the coming days.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time. I just wanted to ask you if you think there's any indication here that this might be how things could possibly go for the remaining officers that are still awaiting trial.
Yeah, very difficult to say. Each case is on its own merits. I do think that these cases are set within a social context, and given the Porter mistrial and the decision in this case, there is more of a sense of where things may be headed, a little bit more of a narrative that's being created. That may have some impact, but again, I think it's the facts of each case. The facts and the theory of the cases are going to be different. This one was just focusing on the arrest. It wasn't really focusing on what happened to Freddie Gray after he was in the back of the police van. So I think the other cases will get to that. So much different questions will be raised.
All right, Robert Coolish with the University of Maryland. Again, Baltimore police officer Edward Nero found not guilty on charges related to the death of Freddie Gray.